There comes a moment, often unannounced and shrouded in the ordinary rhythm of life, when the world seems to pause, and you feel it. Not the fleeting awareness of time, but a profound, almost subterranean shift within your being. It is a weight pressing down, not on your shoulders, but on your very soul. You realize, with a piercing clarity that almost terrifies, that the trials which once shattered you no longer hold the same sting. The arguments, the betrayals, the heartbreaks, the agonies of self-doubt. They have passed through you, leaving scars that are no longer wounds but engravings of experience. The paradox is almost unbearable. The very lessons that once seemed insurmountable have been learned, and you emerge not unscarred, but irrevocably whole. Imagine standing at the edge of a stormy cliff, wind tearing at your coat and hair, the sea below thrashing in relentless fury. In your youth, each wave might have seemed capable of swallowing you entirely, each gust threatening to hurl you into the abyss. Yet now there is a strange serenity. You feel the same storm, but it no longer controls you. You do not fight it, you do not seek to tame it. You simply stand, rooted in the strange, unsettling truth that the soul, when it has truly endured, recognizes the illusion of ultimate harm. Pain once believed to be unmanageable has become a teacher whose lessons are complete. This is not hubris. This is the quiet, disarming wisdom of survival. Carl Jung once reflected, "I am not what happened to me, I am what I choose to become." There is a subtle shift here. You are no longer defined by the pain or the chaos you endured. You have absorbed it, distilled it, and in some ineffable way you have moved beyond it. But how does one recognize that the soul has truly learned its hardest lesson? The signs are subtle, almost imperceptible. They manifest in moments of profound patience where once there was impatience, in the capacity to forgive what once seemed unforgivable, and in the uncanny ability to see meaning where before there was only absurdity. Perhaps the most unsettling sign is a sense of timelessness. Life, in all its petty grievances and fleeting joys, begins to appear as a tapestry of patterns rather than a series of emergencies. You notice a shift in your relationships, too. The people who once triggered anger, jealousy, or fear now act merely as reflections of the internal work you have done. You no longer project your unresolved battles onto them, because the war within has, in a sense, been fought to completion. Your soul has faced its greatest adversaries, not external but internal, and has emerged, not unscathed, but transformed. There is, however, a caveat. Recognizing this transformation is almost always accompanied by an eerie dissonance. The world feels simultaneously familiar and alien. You inhabit a space where the ordinary annoyances, the trivial dramas, no longer command your energy. Yet the urge to share this hard-earned wisdom with others can feel almost unbearable, for few can truly grasp the depth of such intimate understanding. It is here, in this liminal zone between completion and engagement with the world, that the first signs of a soul having learned its hardest lesson become palpable. You begin to ask yourself urgent, unsettling questions. Have I truly outgrown the patterns that once defined me? Am I walking through life differently because I have understood its cruelty, or because I have accepted it? And in these questions lies the first echo of liberation, the whisper of a soul that has endured, learned, and is poised on the edge of a new existence, one shaped not by fear but by comprehension, one tempered by fire yet radiating a quiet resilience that is impossible to feign. The first unmistakable sign that your soul has weathered its harshest trial is the emergence of an inner freedom so subtle, yet so profound, that it often takes you by surprise. It is not a dramatic liberation, as if the world suddenly bursts open with radiant possibility. Rather, it is a quiet unburdening, a realization that the chains which once bound your thoughts, emotions, and reactions no longer hold sway. You find yourself responding to life with a serenity that is not learned from meditation or philosophy alone, but forged in the crucible of lived suffering. Consider a person who, for decades, has wrestled with the fear of rejection. Each interaction, each decision, carried the invisible weight of judgment. Every glance or word could trigger anxiety, resentment, or self-doubt. And then, after countless repetitions of the same painful cycles, something shifts. That fear, once omnipresent, becomes a shadow at the periphery rather than a dictator of your actions. You begin to act from a place of choice rather than compulsion. There is freedom in recognizing that the outcome of others' opinions no longer dictates your sense of worth. Friedrich Nietzsche, in his contemplation of suffering, declared, "He who has a why to live can bear almost any how." This principle applies not only to survival but to transcendence. The soul that has faced its harshest lessons begins to operate from a central why, a core understanding that suffering, while inevitable, is not the sum of existence. When this understanding crystallizes, fear loses its tyrannical power. You do not evade challenges or numb yourself to life's pain. Instead, you navigate adversity with the calm confidence of someone who has already endured the worst. This internal freedom manifests in myriad subtle behaviors. You notice a declining need for approval, a diminishing attachment to external validation. Arguments no longer wound in the way they once did. Betrayal no longer devastates in its former intensity. You witness life's chaos without flinching, recognizing it as a reflection of the human condition rather than a personal affront. Even the most persistent shadows of your past, those moments you once thought would define you forever, begin to soften into patterns of insight, like cracks in pottery that, when illuminated, reveal beauty rather than weakness. Yet this freedom is paradoxical. The more you step away from attachment to outcomes, the more fully you inhabit life. Your relationships deepen not because they are flawless, but because you can engage without fear of loss or betrayal. Your passions flourish not because they guarantee reward, but because they emerge from authenticity rather than expectation. Jean-Paul Sartre's reflection resonates here. Freedom is what you do with what's been done to you. The soul that has learned its hardest lessons understands that freedom is not a gift. It is the earned consequence of endurance. There is also a profound patience that accompanies this liberation. You no longer rush to solve every discomfort or impose order on every uncertainty. Life unfolds in layers, and you have developed the rare ability to witness the unfolding rather than fear it. In conversations, in moments of solitude, even in the silence of night, you feel a subtle but inexorable shift. The inner dialogue that once brimmed with panic or self-recrimination has quieted. You are present, anchored in a perspective that is neither naive nor detached, but deeply aware of the rhythm of existence and your own capacity to endure it. This quiet mastery over oneself, though invisible to the untrained eye, marks the first tangible sign that the soul has absorbed its most painful lessons. It is a power without flash, a wisdom without spectacle, and a calm that carries the weight of experience while refusing to be weighed down by it. The storm still rages in the world, but within you, the tempest has met its equal, and in that balance you are free. Once the soul has learned its hardest lesson, the way you perceive others shifts in ways both subtle and seismic. Relationships, once arenas of projection and expectation, transform into mirrors of clarity. You begin to see people not through the lens of your fears, wounds, or desires, but as they truly are: complex, flawed, and beautifully human. This perception is rarely conscious at first. It arises as an instinct, a quiet recognition that the judgments you once projected onto others were merely reflections of your own unresolved battles. Recall the countless arguments, misunderstandings, and betrayals that left your heart raw and your mind restless. Previously, another person's anger might have triggered defensive rage. Their disappointment could spiral into self-loathing. But after enduring and integrating the deepest lessons of life, a subtle alchemy occurs. You no longer carry the weight of others' reactions as if they were personal verdicts. Aldous Huxley observed, "Experience is not what happens to you. It's what you do with what happens to you." Now, instead of reacting impulsively, you respond thoughtfully, seeing beyond the surface to the hidden complexities of human behavior. This shift is not born of cynicism or detachment. On the contrary, it opens you to a deeper empathy, one that recognizes the pain beneath anger, the fear beneath cruelty, and the insecurity beneath arrogance. Your relationships begin to operate on a new axis, one not of expectation or judgment, but of understanding. People who once frustrated or confused you now appear as catalysts for your ongoing growth, providing opportunities to exercise patience, compassion, and discernment. You realize that the chaos of interpersonal life is not a personal affront, but a reflection of the collective struggle of consciousness itself. Yet, there is a paradox here that is both liberating and disorienting. You may find yourself increasingly isolated, not because you reject connection, but because the shallow dramas that once demanded your attention no longer hold value. Small conflicts and petty rivalries lose their power to disturb you. Instead, you gravitate toward meaningful interactions, those that challenge, inspire, or resonate with the authenticity of your inner transformation. Viktor Frankl's insight rings true. When we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves. By changing yourself, your relational landscape also changes, and the soul recognizes this as a hallmark of profound learning. This clarity brings another, often unspoken, realization. The act of forgiveness becomes effortless. Forgiveness is no longer a struggle or a calculated moral act. It is a natural consequence of understanding. Those who hurt you are no longer enemies, merely flawed individuals navigating the same existential currents. The bitterness that once tethered you to the past dissolves, replaced by a steady equanimity that makes resentment almost impossible to sustain. You are no longer a prisoner of the world's injustices. You have transcended them, not through denial or avoidance, but through comprehension and acceptance. However, this transformation can also provoke discomfort in others. People who thrived on drama, conflict, or emotional manipulation may find your calm disarming, even threatening. But this is a necessary consequence of true growth. The soul that has mastered its hardest lessons cannot revert to old patterns for the comfort of others. In these moments, you recognize a deeper truth. The most profound lessons of life are rarely validated externally. They are experienced internally, quietly reshaping your perception of the world and your place within it. The soul that sees others without projection has begun to inhabit a rare and powerful perspective. One of discernment coupled with compassion, detachment intertwined with deep engagement. It is a perspective that allows you to navigate the world with grace, understanding, and unshakable steadiness. This is the next threshold of mastery, the point where the internal wisdom cultivated through suffering begins to inform the external life in transformative ways. Once the soul has endured and assimilated its hardest lessons, the experience of time itself begins to transform. Life no longer unfolds merely as a sequence of events, anxiously measured in successes, failures, and fleeting pleasures. Instead, time assumes a fluid, almost elastic quality, bending to the awareness that true understanding is not bound by chronology but by depth. You feel both the weight of decades past and the immediate presence of the eternal now, a paradox that is both unsettling and liberating. Consider how memory, once a source of pain or regret, becomes a reservoir of insight. The moments that used to haunt you, the failures, humiliations, and heartbreaks, no longer constrict your consciousness. They exist as integrated experiences, instructive and complete, providing a map of your soul's journey. Arthur Schopenhauer observed, "Compassion is the basis of morality." And in this temporal clarity, compassion extends not only to others but to your own past self. You look backward without bitterness, and forward without fear, inhabiting the continuum of life with a sense of mastery forged in suffering. This fluidity of time also changes the way you engage with your daily existence. Tasks, interactions, and decisions no longer feel urgent in a shallow sense. The trivial anxieties that once consumed hours of your life, the missed deadlines, the casual slights, the imagined judgments, fade into insignificance. You perceive the world as a series of opportunities for presence, learning, and subtle growth, rather than a battlefield of crises to be survived. Viktor Frankl's insight applies here as well. Everything can be taken from a man but one thing, the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances. Time, once a tyrant, becomes an ally, and your attitude becomes the instrument through which meaning emerges. Yet, this shift is not passive. Life continues to test you in unexpected ways, and the lessons that once demanded endurance are replaced by subtler challenges. Patience, tolerance, and discernment. What distinguishes a soul that has truly learned is the ability to navigate these challenges without reactivating old patterns of fear, anger, or despair. You no longer measure life by scarcity, what is lost, what is threatened, but by presence, insight, and engagement. You inhabit each moment fully, and paradoxically, this engagement amplifies the richness of your experience, making time feel expansive rather than constrained. A subtle, almost mystical awareness often emerges, the sense that meaning is woven into even the smallest acts. Simple gestures, a smile, a word of encouragement, an act of creativity, carry a depth that was previously invisible. The soul recognizes that the most profound lessons are rarely public or dramatic. They unfold quietly, in the ordinary flow of being. Jean-Paul Sartre's philosophy resonates here. Man is condemned to be free, because once thrown into the world, he is responsible for everything he does. The lessons endured and absorbed grant the soul the clarity to act responsibly, not out of obligation, but from understanding of life's interconnectedness. This altered perception of time and meaning is both liberating and humbling. It offers a reprieve from the panic of constant striving and from the fear of failure, while also demanding ongoing awareness. Life becomes a tapestry in which every thread, past and present, joy and sorrow, victory and loss, is interwoven into an intricate whole. The soul that has internalized its hardest lessons moves through this tapestry with a sense of purpose and peace, recognizing that the depth of experience, not its duration or drama, defines the measure of life itself. By the time the soul has truly absorbed its hardest lessons, it develops a resilience that is fundamentally different from mere toughness or survival instinct. This resilience is not the reactive armor one builds against the world, nor is it the temporary courage summoned in crisis. It is a profound, enduring capacity to engage with life in all its unpredictability without being undone. Pain still exists, uncertainty still looms, yet neither can dominate the inner landscape. Imagine the challenges that once struck terror or despair into your heart. Betrayal, loss, existential doubt. In the past, each would have seemed insurmountable, each capable of fracturing your sense of self. Now, the same events occur, but they are met with a steadiness that almost astonishes you. The soul has developed the capacity to absorb shocks without internal collapse, not by resisting or denying them, but by understanding the deeper currents that govern life. Aldous Huxley wrote, "Experience is not what happens to you. It is what you do with what happens to you." Here, the application of experience has transformed vulnerability into resilience, a resilience that does not boast, does not flaunt, but simply exists as a quiet certainty. This resilience manifests in everyday life as a profound emotional equilibrium. Frustrations no longer provoke disproportionate reactions. Anxiety no longer dictates choices. Even disappointment, the ever-present companion of human expectation, becomes less a blow and more a prompt to engage thoughtfully with circumstance. Viktor Frankl's reflection is illuminating. When we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves. The soul that has learned its deepest lessons does not expend energy resisting inevitabilities. Instead, it adapts, integrates, and responds with conscious clarity. Paradoxically, this resilience often brings a heightened sensitivity to the subtleties of life. The pain endured has sharpened perception rather than numbed it. You recognize suffering in others with an intuitive empathy, yet without the compulsion to solve or control it. You engage in the world fully, but without the fear that previously dictated your engagement. There is a new courage in accepting life as it comes, a courage not born of invincibility, but of profound understanding. As Nietzsche noted, that which does not kill us makes us stronger. But this strength is not merely physical or psychological. It is spiritual, a form of inner fortitude rooted in comprehension rather than denial. This resilience also reveals itself in the ability to embrace uncertainty. Life, by its nature, is unpredictable. The soul that has endured recognizes this as truth rather than threat. Decisions are made not from panic or desperation, but from grounded discernment. Risk is evaluated with insight rather than fear. Even the unknown ceases to provoke the old paralysis of anxiety, because the soul has learned that endurance, understanding, and adaptability are the ultimate guarantors of survival and meaning. Perhaps the most disarming aspect of this resilience is its humility. It does not proclaim mastery. It does not seek admiration. It simply carries the imprint of lived experience, a quiet authority that radiates confidence without arrogance. You recognize the fragility of existence yet no longer fear it, because you understand the soul's capacity to recover, integrate, and grow. Life may challenge you endlessly, yet you walk forward with the unshakable knowledge that the deepest lessons have been learned, and that whatever comes next is met not with dread, but with awareness and presence. The final sign that the soul has learned its hardest lessons is a profound sense of integration, a merging of the fractured parts of self into a coherent whole. Pain and joy, loss and love, fear and courage, all these polarities no longer exist as opposing forces but as complementary threads in the tapestry of experience. The soul does not seek to escape suffering, nor does it cling blindly to pleasure. It moves through life with a quiet radiance, a serene authority born not of external recognition, but of internal completeness. Imagine waking in the stillness of morning, moments before the world intrudes with its demands, and feeling an unusual alignment within yourself. Past regrets no longer tug at your consciousness. Future anxieties no longer dictate your heartbeat. You are fully present, inhabiting a body and mind tempered by suffering, enlightened by comprehension, and illuminated by acceptance. This is not an abstract ideal. It is a tangible state of being, one that reveals itself in ordinary life, through patience in conversation, depth in relationships, and calmness in the face of unpredictability. Carl Jung's insight resonates here. Your vision will become clear only when you can look into your own heart. Who looks outside, dreams. Who looks inside, awakes. The soul that has learned its hardest lessons awakens to itself, not in a burst of revelation, but as a continuous, deliberate integration. There is no urgency to prove wisdom to the world. There is no compulsion to reenact past dramas. Instead, the soul moves through life with a harmonized rhythm, responding rather than reacting, giving rather than taking, loving without clinging. This integration also manifests in a profound sense of purpose. Life is no longer perceived as a series of random events or trials to be endured. Each experience, mundane or extraordinary, is understood as a thread in the broader tapestry of personal evolution. Viktor Frankl captured this truth. Life is never made unbearable by circumstances, but only by lack of meaning and purpose. The lessons that once felt like punishment have been transformed into a roadmap, guiding each choice, each action, and each thought toward deeper alignment with what truly matters. Equally striking is the soul's newfound intimacy with paradox. You no longer demand certainty where it cannot exist. You embrace the coexistence of suffering and beauty, transience and permanence, freedom and responsibility. Even when life presents unexpected turbulence, the inner landscape remains resilient and luminous. The storms of the world are no longer capable of disturbing the stillness forged within, and this stability becomes a subtle beacon to others, attracting those who are ready to witness or partake in this rare, tempered wisdom. Ultimately, this is the final liberation, the recognition that the soul has endured, comprehended, and emerged whole. There is a peace that is not complacent, a joy that is not naive, and a strength that is invisible yet unmistakable. Every hardship absorbed, every fear faced, and every lesson learned culminates in a state of being that transcends ordinary understanding. Life is still unpredictable, pain still exists, and uncertainty remains, but these no longer define you. You are free not because life is free of challenges, but because you are unshakable in the face of them. In this quiet radiance, the soul has completed its greatest work. It has learned, integrated, and now exists in a harmony that is at once deeply personal and universally resonant. Arthur Schopenhauer's reflection echoes with finality. A man can do what he wants, but not want what he wants. The soul that has learned its hardest lessons has transcended this limitation, cultivating a desire aligned with wisdom, a heart aligned with compassion, and a mind aligned with truth. In such a state, life is no longer a trial to survive, but a journey to inhabit fully, consciously, and beautifully.